Namaskaraha and welcome to our next session on the yogic life. So for the last several months, almost going to be like a year, we've been learning about the yogic life, and we have spoken that. Uh, I'm just going to mute you for a minute. Okay. We have spoken that how that all human beings are born as animals in human form, and most of us remain as animals in human form for our entire life. So what do we mean by that? We mean that human beings who are striving to get happiness through limited things of this world, just in a way that you know uh, the animals behave with ahara, nidra, bhayam, maitunam. The similar way we strive to get happiness through all the limited things. So most of the human beings, like all of us, when we are children, we are animals in the human form. So what we mean by that is that we eat, sleep, play, and then as we, when we go through adolescence, we try to get satisfied with the limited things of this world. But then once, when the mind changes and the actual proclivity for the infinite awakens within them, then the question arises how they're going to do it, how they're going to address it. Otherwise, for the most part, what happens is that from the childhood we are engaged in the pashu dharma, and even as adults, most people, that is what they do. They focus their attention and they strive to get happiness through limited things. But there are few people who are blessed in a way that they in the adolescent years their inner eyes awaken, and they strive to attain that uh, the infinite, attain the infinite. Actually, most human beings don't realize that they have an infinite desire within them. They just know that there is something which is pushing them ahead. Whereas animals, what they do is they fill their stomach, and then when it is warm and safe, then they actually go to sleep. They have no other work. But what happens with human beings is that human beings go on dreaming about what the other things that they would like to accomplish in this life, how they would like to get more money, more name, more fame, better post, whatever it is. So the specifics actually vary from individual to individual, and there is a mismatch. There's a mismatch that every human being has within them, right? A desire to know the infinite, and due to not realizing this fact, they go on trying to meet that desire with the finite things, and it doesn't work, right? And that is the root cause of what people call the human condition, right? So but the yogis, they don't accept this, right? When they because there is they found another way ahead, right? So that is what we are all here for, that there is another way ahead. And what is that way, right? So, well, all human beings have 50 vrittis. Mostly they have 50 vrittis. All those ultimately go inward and outward, as well as in 10 different directions. So basically 50 vrittis multiplied by 2 into 10 ultimately becomes 1000 vrittis, right? So of these 50 vrittis, of the 1000 vrittis, there is only one vritti towards Parama Purusha, right? As long as people are you know uh, focused on all the other vrittis excepting this vritti towards Parama Purusha, then they are going to spend their lives as animals in human form. So the important question is, what does yoga do for us? So yoga is a science. It is a proven science which every human being can experience, which allows one to channelize one's proclivities, one's vrittis, one's tendencies from all the other, the 49 vrittis towards the 50th vritti, which is to know that infinite. And yoga is a well proven science, since ancient times, and it is something which should be and is indeed available to each and every human being, right? As we may have mentioned in the past, it is like a tool or a machine or a factory, right? You put a human being into that machine, and then you put a human being who is in the, who is human being outside and is an animal inside. You put such a person into that machine, yoga machine. What comes out is a pure human being. Actually, what comes out can be a deva, right? So you take an animal in human form and put it into that machine, put them into the machine, and they come out as human in human form. It is guaranteed. It works for everybody, works for anybody, right? The only question is whether they are interested in pursuing it or not. It works for every human being who tries to pursue it. Everyone who sincerely engages themselves in it will find that it is working. How do they know it is working? Because their likings and dislikings change, right? Their likings and dislikings change. That is a key indicator that their that this yoga is working, right? So the person who is an animal in human form has a liking for crude things, right? Usually we have a liking for crude things. Most humans have a liking for crude things. They get attracted towards crude things, think that those things will satisfy them, which of course do not satisfy. But when one puts themselves into the yoga machine, which is a yantra, into that sophisticated scientific tool of yoga, then what happens is that one's desires for those mundane things of this world begin to get channelized towards that Paramapurusha, towards that infinite, which is there within them, within each of us. So this yoga is a very, very practical science, which everybody can come to realize. And we have talked about the basics, a lot of the basics in these sessions in the past. And anybody who sincerely engages with those things, they will find that it is working. And how do they know? Their likings and dislikings change, right? This yoga, the scientific tool, definitely works, and all of the tools of yoga are designed towards helping a person to become free of their worldly vrittis and allowing those desires for those vrittis to become channelized towards that 50th vritti, right, towards that infinite. That is the basic idea behind yoga. So there are actually two things. One is that one's likings and dislikings change, and the second is that one's desire for the infinite becomes more and more and more and more intense, right? So there are two things. One is, when how do we know this yoga is working, is when you put yourself into this yoga machine. One thing is that you will note that your likings dislikings change. What do we mean by likings and dislikings change? That your likings towards the crude things will change, and your liking towards the infinite increases. And the second thing is that desire for the infinite becomes more and more intense, right? So general human beings do not feel this, because although that vritti is there, the vritti of knowing that infinite is there, right? We have talked about this in the past also. I think it is like a magnet, and you have an iron, a piece of iron, which has all kinds of other things in it besides iron. It has contaminants, plastic, other things, in which are not attracted to the iron. So long as all those other impurities are there, are remaining in the iron, then the iron is only going to be very, very faintly attracted, because there is hardly any iron in it. So there are so many things, other things mixed in that iron, right? But if we put that iron through a process of making it more and more and pure, more and more pure, then what happens is, gradually that iron becomes more and more attracted to the magnet, right? That is what happens in yoga. So those things which were so attractive, right, the crude things which are so attractive, they lose their attraction, and it is a very, very beautiful process. So they lose their attraction to those through things, and they become more and more attracted towards the infinite, and that goes on and on and on and on for the whole life, right? It becomes the only object of attraction for a human being, uh, and it keeps on increasing for the whole life, and that is the beauty of yoga, right? So there is no other object of attraction in this world. The attraction for which goes on increasing for the whole life, right? There is nothing in this world, you know, everything, every object in this world, we may be attracted to it today, and then tomorrow that object loses its charm. So we might be thinking, this is something that I ran towards so much all my life, and today, you know, I'm not no longer attracted to it. What happened? Why it changed? So every single object in this universe which we were attracted so much today, and tomorrow we may lose the charm, we may not be interested in those things, but there is only one thing for which the interest never reduces, and that is this infinite. This is the Parama Purusha, right? So generally the mind gets bored, mind changes, mind is always changing, so it does not remain attracted to those things. So the 2 points that I want to talk about before we go through the Karapatra is, number one is that yoga is a scientific process, the scientific methodology which is proven, and it works for anybody who is a human being. It's actually a scientific process, and anybody who puts themselves into this process and engages with it sincerely is guaranteed to get success. So we have talked about all of those things: ahara, satvik ahara, asanas, then nirjala upvasa, and all those vyapak soch, all of those things, those sadhana angas that we have been taught. So all of those, like for instance the asanas, which help to refine and put the glands of the body into balance, right? The glands are the interface between the physical existence and the psychic existence. So right, so this is what we have been talking about, that what is the nature of a human being, right? So the dharma of a human being is what we've been talking about from day one, and right, and the dharma of the human being, the unique quality of a human being, right, is the desire for that infinite. And we also have the pashu dharma. Every human being has two dharmas, the pashu dharma and the manava dharma. Pashu dharma, because we evolved from animals, so we do have those vrittis, those tendencies within us. We also have the dharma of seeking the infinite, which is the bhagavata dharma. So it depends on which one, because the human beings have a swatantra ichha. So we have an option whether we want to follow the pashu dharma or we want to follow the manava dharma, right? So human beings are not so simple like the animals. Like animals, like dogs, they have tendencies and proclivities. Like as soon as you see a dog, you know, the range of behavior of a dog is quite limited. Like what a dog will do when it comes into a room, you can make some guess as to whether the dog will be around smelling all things, right? But a human being, you don't know when he comes into a room, right? We don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to be a thief or is he going to be a saint, right? There those the striking difference between a human being and animal. So human beings, as I was saying, that we have 50 vrittis, different vrittis, and depending on a human being, different ones may be dominant in a human being, right? So they have quite varieties of manifestation of behavior, right? We can't characterize all human beings as to what their nature, right? But there are 50 vrittis, and 49 of them are worldly vrittis, and one of them is the vritti for the infinite. So anybody, as I was saying, anybody who puts themselves into this scientific process of yoga will get success, and it is guaranteed, right? And we have talked about the asanas through which one gets balance in the glands, and the glands are critically important because they are the interface between the mind and the body. So when the glands are all balanced by doing asanas regularly twice a day, that creates tremendous benefit for forward movement, right? And then we also talked about satvik ahara, we talked about nirjala upvasa, we talked about vyayama, doing regular exercise, daily exercise. All of these things are the fundamental aspects of yoga, right? And ultimately, they all these aspects are all sadhana angas, right? So they're all supporting the process. We are essentially trying to create an environment in which proper environment in which mind can thrive and can do sadhana, right? We've been saying that mind has no shape, right, of its own, and it takes the shape of that which it thinks about. And if somebody engages in this scientific process of meditation, then this ultimately the culmination of yoga, right, uh, is the supportive functions, all these sadhanangas. These sadhanangas are critically important, right, which ultimately result aid in the process of meditation, right? Ultimately one needs to learn the scientific process of meditation, through which one learns how to make the mind one pointed, right? Channelize that one pointed mind towards that infinite, which becomes facilitated through all the other aspects of yogic life which we have discussed. So ultimately this is a scientific process in which when we engage, then human beings will definitely get success. There is no doubt about it. Really doesn't matter what a person's mother tongue is, what their color of the skin is, which country they grew up, in which climate they are living, right? All of those external differences, ultimately all human beings are same in terms of the manava dharma, and yoga has understood what this manava dharma is and manifested a scientific process, this unique scientific process. It's one of a kind, right? Utilizing this scientific process, takes an animal in human form and turns them into human, in a human form, right? And ultimately a deva, a divine in human form, as they become one with the infinite during this very life. So the second point I want to mention here is closely related, that everybody has stress in life, right? Nobody can escape without having stress, the mind getting stressed out, right? And what is the result of that stress? And people seek quick fixes, right? So these are all obstacles on the yogic path, these quick fixes. People seek mundane relief for their stresses, their anxiety and stress. Everybody goes to work, they have to interact with all kinds of people, they get stressed out. So how do they respond to that stress, right? So they're looking for quick fixes. So somebody drinks coffee, somebody smokes a cigarette, somebody drinks alcohol, somebody plays pinball, somebody plays cards, somebody gambles. People do all kinds of things to get relief from the stress, and all these quick fixes are very negative. All those things are very negative, and yoga is what provides the unique solution, because ultimately there is only one solution to all these things, only one. And what is the solution? As the mind starts to come into closer contact with what it really desires, which is the Parama Purusha, the Shuddha Purusha, the infinite entity, as the mind begins to come into contact with that entity, then it gets ananda, it gets bliss. That is the only thing that gives true release, true peace to the mind in this world. And yoga is a scientific process for attaining that. So these things, these quick fixes that people engage in, right? How is that, when we compare that with the tools that we use in yoga to help to overcome all this, right? So like for instance, like food is one common thing that people seek to get relief from this world, right? So what is food? Food is a fuel for the body, right? That is what it is just an indhanam. But if people use the food for something else other than it, then it becomes an abuse. It's a misuse of this fuel. People get stressed out, right? There is somebody selling fast food on the street and they think, oh, let me get some of those french fries or pakoras or whatever, hamburger or whatever it is. They just get it because they want to get some quick relief, like eating gives relief. So whatever relief that they're going to get is very, very fleeting, right? It's a fleeting relief, and it's really not a true relief. People become intoxicated both by all those things, right? They get intoxicated. So this intoxication is a very serious obstacle on the path of becoming a human in human form. So as long as one continues with those intoxicants, then you know uh, so they will just be following that pasu dharma more and more, right? So mind is actually one, and it can only have one thought or one desire at a time. As long as the mind is intoxicated with something other than Paramapurusha, then mind is going down on some detour, right? You're trying to get that supreme, right? You're going from Calcutta to Delhi, but instead you got attracted to all kinds of other things on the way, right? You got onto this bus, and you went all to all different types of places instead of going to Delhi, because you got misguided that this is going to give you some some of those things that you wanted, right? Food is one of the main things for that. That is why having proper food, which is truly a fuel for the body and the mind, right, is very important, right? When it is really that, then you know satvik ahara is also is very tasty. Satvik ahara is very tasty, right? So people seek to get relief from food, you know, to get rid of the stress. So in the food, we talked about getting rid of salt, oil, and sugar, those three things. And the entire fast food industry, where things are being made like chips and biscuits and cookies and whatever it is that they sell, all of those things are made of these things, right? They use potatoes as the medium for its chips, right? And in the chips, even though potatoes are a medium, but ultimately they use salt, sugar, oil, right? So from those chips, if you take away the salt, then potatoes lose their attraction, the chips lose their attraction. So people intoxicate themselves. So these are all intoxicants. Just like alcohol is an intoxicant, oil, sugar, salt are all intoxicants. People use them to get relief from the stress of this world. That is what they do. So yogic food does not include those things. Just like anybody who was a cigarette smoker or a alcohol drinker, when they got rid of those things, then the mind ultimately gets a huge relief from that. Right? They loved cigarette smoking. They were a chain smoker. When they finally quit, right, they became repulsive. It became so disgusting that they cannot stand the smell of it. Right? Same thing with all these things. Right? These salt, sugar, oil, all of these are intoxicants in the food industry. Right? There are absolutely zero nutritional requirement. There is no requirement for any of these three things. Get rid of all of those things, and your body and mind will thank you. They will get a huge relief, right? All of the aspects of yogic life are directed in this fashion to get the mind on the right track towards Paramapurusha, towards becoming one with that Supreme in this very life. That is the true Ananda. That is the true bliss. That is what the mind should be directed towards, to get relief from in this world, right? Ultimately, the mind won't be stressed anymore, right? It won't need any quick fixes. It won't need any relief, because it's not going to be stressed anymore, because the stress is due to the identity with the small I feeling. So as the mind becomes more and more and more identified with that Supreme, and the desires of Paramapurusha become the same desires of the sadhaka, then the stress is completely gone, because you're not having any expectation, right? Absolutely there is no stress. So it's very important to follow all the aspects of yogic life, yogic food. Get rid of all the company products. Don't eat in restaurants. Don't eat onion, garlic, mushrooms, right? These should be avoided. Salt, sugar, oil, dairy products. Salt is an intoxicant. People may not think of it like that, but it is an intoxicant. People put salt in the food. They're not eating the food for food. They're eating the food to get the taste of the salt. It's important to get rid of the salt. It's like poison. It's an intoxicant. So it is a deterrent in the yogic path. So you can see how evolved a human being is in this world. You can see anybody by seeing the degree to which you know they are dependent on the physical things in this world for mental release, right? So if their food has a lot of oil, salt and sugar, then you can see that they are totally intoxicated. They're totally dependent on those things for relief, for the tension, relief from the tension in this world, right? One has to get rid of all of those things. When one frees oneself from those things, then one starts learning meditation, becoming attracted to the supreme, and then those things which were attractive before, they lose their glimmer, right? It's just like a 4-year-old boy who's playing with the dolls, and then they love playing with those dolls, but when that 4-year-old comes to 20, if he becomes 20, and if you give those 20-year-old those same dolls, then you'll be like, why did you give me these things? These are not attractive anymore, right? Because the mind changed. They got interested in other things. So the sadhaka's mind is gradually getting more and more and more and more attracted to the parama purusha, and losing the attraction to all the mundane things. Right? One should have a disciplined life, get rid of all those things. And actually in the beginning there is a kind of withdrawal, like just like alcohol withdrawal or nicotine withdrawal, caffeine withdrawal. The first day that somebody is without these things, they have a strong desire for them, but then ultimately when they stop, then they lose interest and they have no attraction to those things. So with a little bit of discipline, the same thing with salt, oil, sugar, right? All of that, get rid of those things. And the first day you may be like, oh my god, I can't do this, but then what happens is that when you get rid of them, then slowly you realize that these are all intoxicants, right? These, I don't need this in my life, right? It's the same thing with cheese and dairy products and all of this. People like all those dairy products, right? They have a hard time getting rid from their life because they are intoxicants. Anything which we cannot get rid of in our life, they're all intoxicants. They intoxicate the mind. The mind goes diving into those things to get relief from this world. But of course, right, that is not a true relief. That's only a temporary relief. It's a quick fix, right? When you engage more and more in the yogic life, learning meditation, that is the key. That is the kunchika, right? The meditation sadhana is the kunchika. With meditation, the mind becomes absorbed in paramapurusha. Then everything else automatically lose their interest. Your likings and dislikings change. So that is what happens, right? Yoga, meditation, mind becoming more and more engaged in paramapurusha, right? And at the same time, all the sadhana anga, like the food that we're talking about, getting rid of all those things which are quick fixes for the mind, right? These quick fixes are intoxicants, they're poison. So yogic life is very, very beautiful. Any human being who sincerely puts themselves into this machine, they are guaranteed to get success. That is the beauty of this yoga, right? That is the beauty of this yoga. So from this process there are two things. One thing, how do we know this yogic process is working, is one thing is your likings and dislikings change. Your likings towards the mundane things slowly reduce automatically on their own. Your liking towards crude things reduce. Second thing is your attraction towards the infinite increases. It becomes more and more and more and more intense. So with these two things you will know that the yogic life is working, right? Okay, so that is what I wanted to share today. Do you guys have any of you have any questions or comments?
Bhagini,
Mm.
you said 50 vritis, no?
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that into 2 and 10 directions. What's that 2 stand for actually?
Internal, external.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. So if there are no questions, we can go to our Karapatra, Intuitional Practice and its Necessity. That is the Karapatra we've been reading. So in this Karapatra, we from the beginning we have we've been talking about meditation, so this karapatra is specifically dedicated to that. So we have talked about how that mind is the karanam for bandhana and moksha, right? And how do we get emancipated from this bondage of prakriti? And that process is called as sadhana. Sadhana is the process by which we can get rid of the bandhana of prakriti. So the story, so basically in the sanchar dhara 12 o'clock, when the the srishti started, we had at 12 o'clock we had purushottama. Due to the trigunatmika prakriti, or because of her gunas influence purusha, the srishti started. Slowly, systematically, the srishti moved, the cosmic mind got created, and then from there the you know panchabhutas evolved. And then at 6 o'clock, when the impact of tamoguna on chitta became more and more, then the jivas started to emerge. And at 10 o'clock we had this something beautiful thing called as human beings, who had a fully developed mind, and they had a clear reflection of consciousness, right? So in human beings with a fully developed mind, right, we have all the three components of the mind, the mahat tattva, aham tattva, and chitta. And human beings use their 10 indriyas with the chitta and interact with the external world, right? So in the pratisanchar dhara from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, even though the influence of prakriti is waning, but at 10 o'clock, when compared to 6 o'clock, the influence of prakriti at 10 o'clock is lesser. But even then, even at 10 o'clock, the prakriti's bondage is still there, right? And we need to move from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock to completely get rid of her bondage. And what is the process by which we do that is through sadhana. Just like how prakriti gradually influenced purusha, right? In the same way, we have to slowly get rid of the bondage of prakriti, right? Come out of the bondage of prakriti. So when we do the sadhana, first we do the sadhana at the level of chitta. We retract chitta into the aham tattva, and then once the chitta is retracted into the aham tattva, and then we do the sadhana at the aham tattva level, and then retract the aham tattva into mahat tattva, and then we do the sadhana at the mahat tattva level, and then retract that mahat tattva into the jivatma, and then merge the jivatma into paramatma. That is actually called as moksha, right? But when we retract to the aham mahat tattva, and the mahat tattva merges into the cosmic I, then that is actually muktihi. So we talked about both of that, right? Both the process. So it's a very systematic and scientific process by which how we retract. And we also talked about the savikalpa samadhi and the nirvikalpa samadhi, right? In the savikalpa samadhi and nirvikalpa samadhi, that is when we do meditation, we go through this process. So when we carry out the sadhana, then the sadhana is done at the chitta, and then chitta retracting into aham tattva, then do the sadhana at the aham tattva and free itself from the influence of prakriti and retracting into the mahat tattva. And then the mahat tattva, the pure I feeling remains, and that is the stage of savikalpa samadhi, right? When the pure I feeling merges with that cosmic I, that is savikalpa samadhi. And then after that, when mahat tattva carries out the sadhana further and dissolves into the jivatma and completely frees itself from the bondages of prakriti, it is completely emancipated. Then jivatma merges into the paramatma. That is the nirvikalpa samadhi. So we talked about both of those things, right? And we also saw how that at the Jivatma level, there are no two prakritis, the cosmic prakriti and the unit prakriti. The prakriti is only one. She is a unique force, and prakriti cannot be divided into two. She is a unique force, and she is the one who influences every Jivatma as well. Right? So when we are doing sadhana to get rid of the bondage of prakriti, we are fighting against the cosmic prakriti, right? The cosmic prakriti, which is so powerful. So that is what we have reached so far. So from here we can actually move on to the next one. Prakriti is a composite force which is always restless. So we'll go on from there. I will share my screen just one second. Can you see my screen?
Bhagini.
Okay, Bhagini, you want to take?
Yes, Bhagini.
Please.
Prakriti is a composite force which is always restless, and so the creation is ever changing. All that is manifested in this Srishti Chakra cycle of creation is metamorphosed cosmic consciousness, and hence changes in the cycle of creation also change the cosmic mind, cosmic kalpana, or the cosmic chitta accordingly. That is, the cosmic mind also becomes restless, and that brings about changes in the flow of creation. But the changes in the flow of creation are slow and gradual, as Prakriti takes quite some time to bring about a change in the infinite mind. It is only because of cosmic consciousness being infinite that changes are gradual and not very quick. Even the ever mutative Prakriti takes some time to bring about a rotation of the entire infinite cosmic mind, cosmic kalpana, or the cosmic chitta, in order to bring about a change. While bringing the cosmic mind or the cosmic chitta under greater bondage, Prakriti also influences the unit mind, bringing about unfathomable restlessness and movement in it. Due to complete influence of infinite Prakriti, the unit becomes extremely disturbed and mutatory. The fickleness and ever-changing nature of the mind needs no description, as everyone understands it well. This quality in the human mind is the sole gift of Prakriti, who imparts to all that she creates her quality of perpetual restlessness. So, the Prakriti is the composite force which is always restless, and so the creation is the ever changing, or that is all that is manifested in the chakra, Srishti chakra, because of the metamorphized cosmic consciousness, and this changes the cycle of creation, and this also changes the cosmic mind accordingly. So the cosmic mind becomes restless, and that brings about the changes in the flow of creation. Now, the changes in the flow of creation is very slow and gradual, as Prakriti takes some time to bring about the change in the infinite mind. It is only, that is, the cosmic consciousness only being infinite, the changes are gradual and not very quick, because the cosmic consciousness is infinite. The ever mutative Prakriti takes some time to bring about a rotation of the entire influence of infinite cosmic mind, and so the changes are also very slow. So while bringing the cosmic mind under gradual under greater bondage, the prakriti also influences the unit mind, bringing about the restlessness, bringing the restlessness in the unit mind. So due to this complete influence of the infinite prakriti, the unit becomes extremely disturbed, and slow to move towards the infinite. It becomes difficult for the unit mind to move into the cosmic consciousness. So this is the sole gift of the prakriti, who imparts all that she creates for perpetual restlessness. That is, she only creates the restlessness. So in this, Bhagini, I have a question also.
Yeah. Yes, Bhagini.
See now, a human, he wants to attain the what to say, Param Purusha or whatever it is also determined by the Prakriti or the Purusha only, no? See, a human form to move towards yoga, yogic life or the moksha is also determined by the Prakriti and Purusha, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That means,
yeah.
See, I want to follow the yogic life is also, I'm going to follow the yogic life is also determined by the Prakriti and Purusha, and that doesn't happen for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah. That is there, but that is what we have. We do have the swatantra ichha, right? Ultimately, we need Bhagavat Kripa. That is there, but human beings have this swatantra ichha, right? We have the swatantra ichha. If you have this intense longing for mumuksha, for moksha, then Paramatma, he himself will help you. He will take away all your samskaras, right? And he will guide you. So it is in your hands, right? Ultimately Bhagavad Kripa is required, but it is also in your hands. That swatantra ichha is there, that, right, a stage when it comes in your life where you feel that these material things of the world don't give me that satisfaction that I'm looking for, right? These don't give me that permanent happiness. I'm looking for that infinite. I want my infinite desire to be fulfilled, right? And when you have that intense longing, and when your inner eyes have been opened, then it becomes the responsibility of Parama Purusha to show you the path, right? So we cannot just say that everything is in the hands of Paramatma and I will not do anything, right? It is his everything is according to his desire. So when he desires, I will get it. Right now I will enjoy my life. That is not the thing. We do have that swatantra ichha, right? Whether we want to go in this way or that way, when we utilize that swatantra ichha, which is very powerful, to go in this right path, then Paramatma will show you the path. That desire is required for you, right? That is why we have this advanced mind. We have a well developed mind and we are ready for it. We are ready for it. Human beings are ready for it. In case of animals, they are not ready for it, but human beings, we are ready for it, and we have a choice whether we want to go forward or backward. And if you choose to go forward, then Parama Purusha will show you the path. It becomes his responsibility to show you the path and guide you and take you, right? So he's waiting for you to hold his hand. He's already holding his hand, but you're not realizing he's holding your hand. When you realize he's holding your hand and you want to hold it forward and go closer to him, then he will automatically help you.
Okay, that I understood.
Yeah.
One question is, that also should be decided, no, according to our samskaras, like,
that
isn't
is
it?
Yes, according to samskaras it will be desired. That's why for some people, even though they hear about Parama Purusha 1,000 times, they are not attracted to this. They're attracted still to the mundane things, right?
Yes.
So for some people, if they're ready, then even if they hear it one time, they're just inner eyes just open and they'll be like, yeah, it seems right, it appeals to their heart, right? So see, so many people on a Sunday morning, so many people are outside doing different things. Why are you here? Ask yourself, why are you here?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
There is something in you which is different from you. Everybody has this infinite desire, but for something, for you, your inner eyes are like, yeah, this is what I want to, it's appealing to me, I want to hear this, right? Otherwise you could be outside doing other things, right?
Right,
So
right, right.
yeah, so it is both ways, right? So samskaras and all are there, but we do have the swatantra ichha. We just can't say that because of my samskaras I'm just not going to try, right? When we learn about it and when we try sincerely, then it becomes his responsibility to guide us, right? Because he wants us, that is the leela of parama purusha, right? He created this srishti so that we can go and merge with him, right? So he will do, paramatma will do everything in his capacity to guide you, right? He just wants you to open your eyes, that's all.
धन्यवादः भगिनी.
Okay. So in this paragraph you nicely said, Bhagni, there are two main things in this passage. That one thing is that everything in this srishti changes very slowly, right? One thing is everything changes very slowly, and the second thing is everything is always changing, right? Even though slowly, but it's, everything is changing. You have a flower in front of you. It looks like the flower is very stable, not moving anything, but there is a change, there is a gati in that flower also. It is there today, it is slowly changing, and it is becoming, it's not there tomorrow, right? Like, flower, it is on the plant and it's not moving, right? Generally we say flower is fixed, it's on the plant, right? But even in such a flower, even though we cannot visually see the gatihi, there is gatihi there also. It is slowly changing. Like a train moving, we can easily see there is a change, it's slowly moving, there is gati, right? We can see in a train, but in a flower we cannot see. But even in a flower there is gatihi, everything, there is gatihi in everything, there is movement in everything, and everything is changing and slowly. So everything has a property of constantly being in a process of change, right? And this is the quality of prakriti. Everything is always changing, and it creates a quality of chanchalata in everything. Everything is restless, nothing remains the same, everything is always changing, and it is changing slowly, you know uh, and if we look at the psychological processes, like for a stone, if you look at a fossil to become a fossil fuel, right? The type of changes that occur in the universe for something to become a stone or for something to become oil, right? Takes thousands and thousands of years for all of these things to happen, right? So the changes from the pancha bhutas, from akasha tattva to vayu tattva to agni tattva to jala tattva and then to kshiti tattva, everything is happening gradually, everything is changing, there is gati in everything, right? So all of these things are changing, and because prakriti herself is restless and her nature is visible in every component of this srishti, the chanchalata, everything is moving, and the chanchalata is there everywhere, whether you looking at an ants or whether you're looking at other animals, nothing is still, everything is moving, right? All insects, everything is moving, right? They're all incredibly busy, and they're moving constantly. Some things which don't appear to be moving, they're also moving, everything is moving, everything is changing. And that gati is there, that is the nature of this srishti. And human mind is also made of that prakriti, right? And human mind also has a chanchalata, right? So when we are, right, when we're talking about moving from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, we're talking about sadhana, right? What happens is that we are waging a war against this cosmic prakriti, right? And making our mind more steady, right? Making it one pointed towards that supreme. Otherwise the mind is always going up and down, right? It's going either going up or it's going down, it's never the same. Every day it's going up, it's going down. There's an event, it just went down, oh god, something happened, earthquake, something happened, oh, mind is down. And again, oh, I won a lottery, then mind is going up, right? It's from crude things, it's going up and down, right? So unless somebody is actively involved in this process of sadhana, yoganishta jivanam, then, and ideating on the infinite and having no individual desires, then the mind becomes more and more and more sukshma, and it is moving towards the infinite. Otherwise, for most people, right, when you're not engaged in sadhana, the mind is never steady, is never calm, either going up or going down. That is the nature of the mind, right? For the most part it is actually going down instead of going up, Going up is actually very rare. Most part it's going down, right? So that is what this paragraph is talking about, that the nature of prakriti is chanchalata, and that chanchalata is seen in every part of this creation, right? Okay, so we can actually go to the next paragraph. Mode, Chandrasekhar Mode, do you want to take the next one?
Sure, sure, Modi. The perpetual restlessness of Prakriti makes her creation, the unit mind, also disturbed throughout its existence. At times, or in some places, it may be more agitated, while at others it may be less disturbed. Restlessness, being a quality imposed by Prakriti, will vary with the influence of Prakriti. The mind is less agitated or disturbed, where the influence of Prakriti is less. Her influence is the least in Mahatattva and the most in Chitta, and hence the former is less restless than the later. Sadhana or intuitional practice lessens the influence of Prakriti on unit consciousness, and with that the restlessness of mind also lessens. Prakriti alone is responsible for imparting disturbance to the mind, and with the waning of her influence, the vacillation of mind also lessens. Hence, the vacillation of mind cannot be steadied unless the unit consciousness is emancipated from the influence of Prakriti. So, in this paragraph, again, it's trying to highlight what the individual or the unit consciousness can do with a unit mind, because Prakriti, her whole this thing purpose is to make everything very agitated, everything constantly changing. So the unit mind is disturbed by the influence of Prakriti. If Prakriti is more influencing the mind at this time, then it will be more agitated. And if the Prakriti's influence is less, the mind would be less agitated or less disturbed. And so all of that we can say is the influence of Prakriti by the nature and the law of Prakriti. But however, the way to get around it, or if we look at it, is that the influence of Prakriti is the least in Mahatattva and the most in Chitta. So then the unit consciousness and the unit mind should resort to, quietening the Chitta and concentrating, or as you say, withdrawing the Chitta into Aham Tattva, into Mahatattva, because that's where the least disturbed mind exists. And so then the whole sadhana is to withdraw the mind withdraw the Chitta into Aham Tattva and Aham Tattva into Mahatattva. As long as it's in Mahatattva or even beyond, then the disturbance or the vacillation of the mind would be extremely reduced. And with that, if that's missing, if we dwell more on the Chitta level, then the disturbance and the vacillation of the mind would be fairly high. And so that the paragraph summarizes this by saying, so the vacillation of the mind, it cannot be steadied unless the unit consciousness withdraws itself and is emancipated. So the influence of the Prakriti would be completely removed. So this is driving to see what one needs to do if the mind has to be steadied and undisturbed.
Okay, nicely said, Maudya. Thank you. So we know that the process of Prakriti is putting the cosmic mind into bondage. It starts from 12 o'clock and goes to 6 o'clock. But that bondage is progressively increasing, right, from 12 o'clock to say 6 o'clock, and then from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock it is progressively waning, Prakriti's bondage, right? So 6 o'clock is the point where the Prakriti's bondage is the maximum, and that is seen in Kshipi Tattva, right? Uh, so no doubt the bondage is reducing, is waning in the Pratisanchar Dhara from 6 to 12, right? But even then there is bondage in the jivas. In at 10 o'clock in human beings there is a bondage and they struggle, right? So even at 10 o'clock the bondage is quite active, and most people become slaves to that bondage in their life, and they end up leading animal lives due to it, right? But when your inner eyes have opened and you realize that you have a desire for the infinite, then rather than the mind degenerating by becoming a slave to that bondage, the mind struggles against that by engaging in sadhana, right? Because we know the mind has no shape. As it thinks, so it becomes. Yadrishi bhavana yasya siddhihi bhavati tadrishi, right? So as you think, so you become. So rather than thinking about crude things, the mind thinks about the infinite, and it starts to become like that. And that is what the sadhana is, how to think about the infinite. And there is a technique for that, right? And in that state one will not have any vacillation, will not have any chanchalata, right? It is unmoving, it is complete. So the mind becomes like that infinite entity, and there is no more bondage of Prakriti. The mind becomes freed from the bondage of Prakriti. The mind gets more and more purified through the Yoganishta Jivanam, and it becomes more and more attracted to the cosmic entity. And right, becoming attracted to the cosmic entity is a natural state for us, right? Otherwise what happens is that when one is engaged in other vrittis, then there is an endless changing chanchalata, right? So the mind gets degenerated. Prakriti is constantly changing. As a result, the mind also is constantly changing. But when one is engaged in sadhana, they try to focus or concentrate, right? So it is actually difficult initially in the beginning. When one sits in sadhana for the first time, they realize that this aspect of chanchalata is very much experienced in sadhana the first time a sadhaka sits for sadhana, right? You can just wonder how, you be amazed to see how the mind is like a monkey traveling from one subject to another subject. It's thinking about everything but Parama Purusha, right? So sadhana is the process how you train the mind to start ideating on that infinite, right? To get the qualities of that infinite, right? When it starts out, it's very restless, and then gradually by doing sadhana it becomes more and more and more and more without restlessness, because the thought of our sadhana is that supreme entity who has no restlessness whatsoever. So eventually the mind becomes like that supreme entity. So that is what this paragraph is talking about. We'll go to the next one. Bhagini, can you take the next one?
Studying the vacillation of the mind is developing concentration of mind, and developing concentration of mind is the same thing. Concentration of mind is just not possible as long as the unit consciousness is not liberated from the qualifying influence of Prakriti. This is the aim of sadhana or the institutional practice also. To concentrate the mind, it would be necessary to liberate, first of all, its most exterior manifestation, the chitta, from the influence of Prakriti. The next would be Aham Tattva, and finally Mahatattva must be liberated from her influence. The mind spread in chitta, Aham Tattva and Mahatattva must gradually be withdrawn from them, and then alone will it be concentrated. The concentration of mind is nothing else but sadhana or intuitional practice, which liberates units from the influence of Prakriti. So this paragraph tells the definition of the intuitional process, intuitional practice, or the sadhana. So the restlessness, studying of the restlessness of the mind and developing concentration of the mind towards the cosmic entity can be done only if we come out of the influence of the prakriti. For that, first the unique consciousness, the chitta, should come out of the influence, and then the aham tattva, and then the mahatattva. So for this, and this is only a slow process, but only this can allow us to achieve our movement towards the cosmic entity. So the concentration of mind is nothing but the sadhana, is nothing but sadhana or intuitional practice, which liberates the unit from the influence or the bondage of prakriti.
Okay. So in this paragraph we're talking about liberating the mind from the influence of prakriti. So prakriti is not an enemy, it's not like an evil force, right, that somebody falls into it, right? So people say that, why did God create this universe just to make us suffer like this, right? What was the need to create this entire world, right? My life is having all this kind of suffering, right? If God loved us, why did he do this, right? People have all kinds of questions, right? Because they're just involved in that and they're not able to see anything, right? So it's this parama prakriti. Actually it's a kind of a natural question for all of this, right, to have in their mind. But what we need to understand is that the Shakti is Shivasya Shakti. Shakti is not separate personality from Parama Purusha. This Parama Prakriti is a tool of that Parama Purusha, and it should not be thought of as something distinct from or in opposition to Parama Purusha. So it is a tool of Parama Purusha, and whatever Prakriti is doing is with the permission and guidance of Parama Purusha, right? So this whole world is beyond the Karya Karana Bhava, right? In Parama Purusha creating this universe, Parama Purusha is one, and out of himself he created many with using this tool of Parama Prakriti. So this tool has been given instructions as to how to do the work, right? When somebody dies and has sanskaras, how to create a situation in which it to take birth in such a way that it could express those abhukta pratikriya, right, so that it can get that human life and further grow. So this is all Leela of Paramapurusha. This whole Vishwa is a Leela of Paramapurusha. We may ask those questions, but we may never get a reply, except that this one has to understand is that this whole thing is for Jana Kalyan. The intention of the Srishti is for Jana Kalyan, so that all the jivas, right, and the nirjivas from the Panchabhutas up to human beings, all of them get liberated. So it is the welfare of everybody. That is the purpose of this Srishti. Right, that is the design of the Srishti. So everything is happening in this universe is for the best of everybody, right? So that one has to understand that people go through all kinds of things, but ultimately it is for their own growth and for learning. This whole Jagat is a university where we learn so that we can become one with Paramapurusha, so that the bondages we get liberated from the bondages. These bondages are there by the design of Paramapurusha for the creation. So without this bondage of Prakriti, there won't be any Srishti. It will be impossible. So this whole universe is a classroom, and it's a learning place for all the jivas, from ants to human beings, everybody, right? So that we grow. It is a place for everybody to learn and grow, ultimately to become one with that supreme entity from whom they emerge. So this influence of Prakriti, you should understand that this bondage was necessary to create the universe, right? And for us to move ahead. Without these obstacles we cannot move ahead, right? When we walk on the frozen ground or on a lake which is frozen, it's very slippery, right? We can actually fall. So in order to move ahead, we have to push little bit backwards. So these obstacles are an opportunity for human beings to move ahead in their lives. So these bondages are not enemies, right? In the sense this, it's like a evil, right? It's not like that, right? So actually in the Pratisanchar Dhara, Prakriti is actually helping us, right? As a Sattva Guna becomes Pradhana, which helps us to move forward. So it's not that Prakriti is the evil force. She's just doing her job. She's a blind force, right? She's not doing anything to hurt us, right? She's also having Sattva Guna, right? So here we have to tell a story about three thieves, right? Maybe I don't know if you have talked about this story about three thieves, right? So let's say there were three thieves. One's name is Tamoguna, and then the other one is Rajoguna, and then the third one is Sattva, right? Some person was traveling through the forest, and these three thieves were there in the forest. They confront this person, take his money away, and take everything he has, and then the three thieves are discussing amongst themselves what we should do with this person, right? What we should do with this fellow. So the Tamoguna says that we should kill him, because otherwise if we don't kill him, then when he gets out of the forest, he will tell the police and they may get caught, right? And then the Rajoguna says, no, there is no need to do that. We should not kill him. We can just tie him up to this tree, and then by the time he gets out, we can escape. We'll be far away and we'll be safe, right? Then Sattva keeps quiet. He doesn't say anything. So ultimately they're discussing between each other, all the three, right? And Sattva is listening, and two of them are discussing. Ultimately all the three ultimately agree that they can tie up the fellow to the tree, and they will still be saved, so they don't need to kill him. So they tie him up to the tree, and then they take all his stuff and they go away. As they go on their path, then after some time Sattva comes back and he says, let me untie you, let me remove these ropes, let me help you. So Sattva takes, unties him, and not only unties him but shows him the path, right? And takes him to the path, shows him the path along to get to the city where he was trying to get to. And then they go through the forest together, and the Sattva takes the other person all the way up until they can see the city. Then the Sattva says to the fellow, I can't take you all the way to the city because the police will be there, they may catch me, but I just wanted to show you so that you can go there safely. So ultimately Sattva shows him the way, and he goes on his way and finally reaches the city safely, right? So this is the nature of these three gunas. These gunas are the tools of Parama Prakriti, who is a blind force, and who doesn't have any designs independently of her own. But the reason I want to share this story is because that Prakriti is Nitya Nivritta. She's constantly becoming waning, right? She's becoming less and less from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And then Sattva is the helping force, right? Sattva is definitely helping, but he cannot ultimately take the jiva manishya all the way up to 12 o'clock, because Sattva is also ultimately guna, right? After all, he is a qualifying force. So one has to go beyond these gunas in order to get moksha, right? One has to go beyond the Sattva as well, right? Go and come to a state where there are no gunas. But Sattva helps one to get almost there, and in the end it is by the grace of Parama Purusha, he takes you on his lap, right? So when somebody takes sattvic food, when somebody is living a sattvic life, then one is taking the help of Sattva Parama Prakriti. It is Sattva of Parama Prakriti. So Prakriti's role is threefold, not only for binding, but it is also helping one to move forward, right? So we can get a sense of how this is working. The qualifying influence of Prakriti may have three different functions. One of that is to help us and take us move ahead, right? So by this we can get a sense that she is not an enemy and is not a a vilifying thing, but she is under the control of Purusha. Prakritihi Shaktihi sa Shivasya Shaktihi. So without without this prakriti there will not be any universe. So this whole Srishti is a leela, and it requires the functioning of prakriti. So we should not think of her as an enemy, but something we should take proper usage of them, right? Take the help of Parama Prakriti, right? So this story is a beautiful story, and it's Shikshaprad, right? It's giving us a lesson that the gunas, they're not only a vilifying force, but you can see that influence is waning on human beings. So it is providing an opportunity for us to move ahead, right? Okay, so let's see how much is that. Okay, we'll actually stop over here for today. Does anybody have any questions? So okay, then we'll conclude the session over here. धन्यवादः, नमस्कारः.
धन्यवादः.
नमस्कारः, धन्यवादः.
धन्यवादः.